and what we can do better in the future. I'm looking forward to the panel.
Thank you, Dominic. I think a quote many of you heard is "Never waste a good crisis" by Winston Churchill in the start of the pandemic, by many in the field of digital health. And now, half a year later, I think it's time for an interim conclusion. How far did we get to use this for innovation in the digital health sphere? Where did we succeed? Where did we fail? I think there are striking examples for both sides. So I'm really looking forward to discuss this question with my upcoming panel in the next 40 minutes. My name is Jürgen Klöppner. I'm editor at the German business daily Handelsblatt, and I can encourage everyone who is watching, please send in your questions via Zoom, via Slack, via whatever media, and I will try to let your questions flow into our discussion in the end of it. So please welcome my fantastic panel. I am really happy to have Veronika Schweighart. She is co-founder of Climedo Health, a Munich startup, and she has a lot to tell about how startups can cooperate with national institutions, because Climedo is at the moment developing the COVID symptom diary for the public health departments in Germany. Great having you, Veronika. We also have Roman Hipp. He's senior partner at Porsche Consulting, and his advice is usually worth a fortune, so please listen carefully what he has to say. Great having you, Roman. Please also welcome Jochen Hurlebaus. He is head of digital health innovation at Roche Diagnostics, and he's well aware of the startup scene from Singapore over Munich to the Silicon Valley, and he will bring his international perspective to this panel. Welcome, Jochen. We also have Marc Holtorf. He is partner at PinsentMasons that got recently awarded by the Financial Times as Europe's most innovative law firm 2020. Marc will show us with his expertise on intellectual property, how this was deserved. Welcome, Marc. And last but not least, please welcome Aline Vedder. She's investment manager at Ananda Impact Ventures, where she focuses on digital health investments. And I'm really looking forward that you bring your perspective as an investor, Aline. Welcome.
Thanks.
So every one of you, I would like to ask you a quick question at the beginning. Who made use of a digital health service such as telemedicine during the Corona crisis? Please raise your hands. I actually can't see you, so I can't know who rose their hands. Probably the technique can help me to see every one of you, but probably you can tell me who was using digital health services during the Corona crisis.
I did. Jochen speaking. I had to something on my skin, and I used kind of the what is it called, like the skin doctor through the iPhone app. Worked okay. Nicely, perfect.
I think as Jochen, many did in the Corona crisis. Many digital health startups reported a Corona boost, a rapid increase in number of users, and also revenue. And my question to Aline is, was it just a flash in the pan or a sustainable increase that will last? What do you think?
I would hope it's the latter. So for us, it was quite interesting because we obviously invested quite a bit in the digital health sector over the last years. So when COVID-19 happened, there was the big question, what would happen to these companies now? And some were really at the forefront, especially the ones in the care sector, for example, which were directly affected because basically as a care worker, you had very different conditions to get to your patients, and was quite some topic. And other ones was interesting because there was also lots of nervousness at the beginning, but at some point it turned out to be pretty positive. Like something like Casper Health, which is basically focused on online rehabilitation services, and which built up a pipeline of new clients over the course of COVID, because all these clinics that they were in touch with beforehand suddenly had really strong urge or needs to think about their hygiene concepts and were exactly looking for solutions like that. So for them, it was really boost in terms of sales. And yeah, looking forward, I would hope and I would think that it's not something that's going to change again once COVID is over, because even if you look at the contracts, for example, it's not something that these clinics implement for 2 or 3 months, but it's long-term contracts. And I think the same applies for the patients as well. they've been used to these new service offerings, they opened up as well. And I don't think that would change so quickly either.
Jochen, what do you think? You made use of a digital health product during the Corona crisis. Is there a lasting shift in patient behavior? Will you change your patient behavior, or will you or will everybody else go back to normal as soon as we have a vaccine, for example?
Well, obviously, it would be surprising if I would say I did not use digital health solutions before, and I would not use it anymore once Corona is over. But I think also in the broader population, I'm fully convinced that a lot of people, not everybody, of course, as always with technology, but a lot of people will actually appreciate the convenience and the benefits of not having to go to a doctor's office, sitting in a room, in a waiting room with 10 or 15 other actually sick people that might give you even more sickness than you had when you arrived there. So I'm convinced it will stay. I think there's still, of course, things to improve. I would also say that on the provider side, on the physician side, there are benefits of using digital health and being closer and spontaneously being able to quickly connect to patients, which I'm sure also will stay.
Roman, you are close to some startups and you have a close look on the market. What do you think, which startup will survive and which will probably also will disappear? We see some change, for example, in telemedicine usage, it goes down again. Who do you think will survive, who will disappear from the market?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, Jürgen. So I think two topics are crucial to stay alive or to be successful. The first topic is, from my point of view, really to understand the patient centricity and, in addition, the doctor's centricity. So without the acceptance, for example, from the healthcare professionals, they won't be successful. And the other topic, from my point of view, is for sure money. We see scaling up quite fast is also key. However, we think that, especially in Europe, in the next days, there won't be any kind of the winner takes it all mentality in Europe. So that means we see in the next 3 to 4 years also startups that they can live in parallel and also be successful in parallel. So to sum it up, I think patient centricity and especially doctor centricity in the moment, and for sure money to scale up is crucial.
It's good that we have the startup perspective here as well with Veronika. How did you experience a, so to say, Corona boost? And what do you think, how will it last?
Yeah, thank you. So actually it's very interesting because at the beginning of the crisis, first of all, what we experienced was quite slowing down and slowing down in investments on our customer side, because our customers are usually medtech companies who actually, when the lockdown came, really stopped their investments, and they are currently still having a very, very hard time. So you can imagine that, for example, during the lockdown, all those typical surgeries about, for example, hip joints, knee joints, or dental implants were totally stopped. So I think I also want to mention here that actually next to the boost of digital systems and digital health in general, actually for the overall medtech and pharma scene, some companies were really suffering and are still suffering a lot. So I think we cannot say that for all the companies in the digital and health scene, it was a win only. But the good thing about what we were then experiencing was that we were directly trying to use the lean startup approach that we are having as we are still a young and small company, and shifting also our attention towards what can we do to actually really help Corona go away very quickly and to steer during those difficult times. And we found a way to make use of our already existing product, which is a digital diary for patients to fill in their data about any symptoms that they might have during, for example, a cold or after a surgery. And as you, Jürgen, already mentioned in the beginning, we were able to convince the Federal Ministry of Health of using this platform and offering it to all health offices in Germany. And therefore, for us in total, it was, of course, a very huge boost by actually now making use of already existing products in a different segment. And also from an overall perspective in the digital scene, we definitely felt that our customers in MedTech also are convinced now that digital solutions are the way to go, even though they are still suffering with their overall market.
I would like to talk about this cooperation a little bit earlier, a little bit later, but probably you can say, what do startups need most at the moment to make best out of the momentum and not probably disappear, how Roman described?
Yeah, so I think the 2 points that Roman mentioned are definitely also on the list. So what we experienced during Corona also with other startups was that they were trying to make use of all the possibilities regarding additional investments or additional funds for digital health startups. And it was not that easy. So we were lucky we didn't have to go fundraising during that phase. But from befriended startups, it was really difficult to make use of all those public funds, but also on investment side. So I'm happy that Aline, you were telling that you were still investing in digital health and believing in it. But I feel like a lot of investors were actually seeing it differently. And so still, I also totally agree that there needs to be more investors who are also risking it, as the word venture capital says it, and are really investing in difficult times. So that's one important thing. And the other thing would, for me also, as Roman mentioned, in terms of like making people aware of the positive highlights of digitalization, for me, it's also digital literacy that is extremely important inside the clinics and hospitals. So I would like to have maybe also the state, but also companies and maybe also even the startups themselves to really invest into educating people in digital literacy to make them aware of the positive effects. But I don't want to point the finger on other people. Actually, it's also up to us to do these investments. And that's why we are also offering a lot of those webinars or classes where we show the positive effects.
Marc, do you see any law changes that could help startups to use the momentum that might be necessary?
Yeah, I mean, recently in Germany over the last couple of years, we had a number of really significant changes in the health data system. I think we were sleeping for many years, but in the last couple of years we really caught up, and actually today, and we couldn't be more on time, the European Commission announced its long-awaited life sciences strategy for the next couple of years, and a key element is really all the digitalization in the sector, including the creation, for example, of pan-EU patient data environment, so that patient data can be really used a lot easier than this is happening nowadays. And I think this is really a big step forward. And the EU Commission announced that it will already bring this into action in 2021, which is only basically a month away.
What do you think, Jochen? Will that help startups? What Marc just offered?
I think it will help startups and everybody else, right? It's just always the question, how long does it take to really make a change? And, you know, I mean, yes, there has been a big boost through digital, but the reality is difficult. The reality is hard. And if you look at, for example, how data is still siloed between ambulatory care and hospitals, you know, we have several projects with startups where it's just still reality today that to find out what a specialist has finally done with a patient, you have to manually read the letter that is sent by the physician to the ambulatory care, to the GP. You know, it's just not even that basic integration of what happened to the patient, what was his final diagnosis, or what did he get as a treatment. It's not there. And of course, these things couldn't be implemented in the crisis because they take a lot of money, a lot of effort, standardization of data. It's not only the legal aspect. So I am wondering what's happening there and if we can hopefully also move forward there quickly next year to make a change here.
Aline, Veronika mentioned that investors actually struggled also in the digital health crisis, probably didn't back up their startups. How was it at Ananda? Did you also see a hard part of this crisis?
Yeah, I think it was a process. It was also different at the beginning than after some time, because I remember the first weeks, months, there was full focus on the portfolio. Same for us. We didn't at that period look for new investments, but we really focused on supporting the companies that we already invested in. And then at some point, when things got a bit more clear in terms of what kind of effects do we have, how do we manage increased cost base versus decreased revenue and so on, that's when we started also to look at new deals again. So I think that definitely made a difference, and that's not normally how you would work as a VC. But then if you ask for health specifically, I'd say in general, the tendency is really positive. Again, like even the ones that we invested in, lots of inbound interest from other investors. And same for us, we also did some proactive digging, looked specifically at solutions that would cater to the whole COVID trend and resulting phenomena. Obviously for some startups more difficult if you look at the whole topic of health solutions selling to employers, employer benefit solutions and so on. These ones are probably topics that you'd be much more reluctant to invest in right now. But it really depends on what kind of companies you're talking about and what kind of business models they have.
And what are topics that investors really searching for during the Corona crisis, probably afterwards? What makes, like, where they want to put their money?
I mean, I think telemedicine is a pretty obvious one, and not just like general medicine, but also for different other verticals like chronic disease patients and so on, rehabilitation sector. So that's like one of the key areas where we also received most interest.
Jochen, do you have anything to add to that? Because you also bring a bit of the investor's perspective. Did the Corona crisis change the way investments are done into startups?
Well, I would say it shifted. I was just hearing yesterday the number on how much has been invested in the last 6 months. I think it was 1.2 billion or something into telehealth and comparable startups. So I'm sure it shifted. I think it also provided more insights to maybe investors that haven't been so focused on digital health before, and that suddenly recognized that there's a lot of potential. So let's hope it also gave a boost in that direction. I'm not sure if it did, but I could imagine that it actually makes a difference.
I think one other example, what people really recognized in the last months was the DIGA process, which was recognized as a process to bring innovation forward in the health system. By the DIGA process, startup can get reimbursed, which is something that we never saw before in the whole world. But it started rough actually with a huge delay and complaints by doctors and also insurances who criticized too high prices of the startups. And the question is this already the breakthrough in digitalization, or can it be anyhow better? What do you think, Roman?
So to answer on the point, I think it's not a breakthrough. I wouldn't call it breakthrough. I would see it more in the direction of a momentum. So everybody sees at the moment, especially in Germany, that there is a willingness of the government really to push digital health in Germany. And there will be hopefully some more of these signals in 2021 and the upcoming years. But if we look what happens today, then we see still a gap from my point of view in hospitals. So the DIGA helps especially in the direction of or in the direct patient interaction, but it's not especially for hospitals, for example, where really from my point of view, there's a lot of potentials in terms of increasing value for the patient. And second, what we know is that at the moment, especially health insurance companies are driving that process in terms of digital health and digital health app in Germany. Hopefully, the DIGA process supports that more and more startups will be successful in bringing their solutions on the market.
Veronika, you were just agreeing on that, I saw on the camera. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, maybe it was my face, sorry, but actually I was nodding also quite a lot regarding the processes in hospitals. I feel like it's really quite a silo in the patient focus, but I actually guess that this is kind of a breakthrough because patient empowerment, as the keyword is saying, is a real trend, and I feel it's an awesome trend because I think it would be so nice to decentralize also parts of the healthcare sector and to take people more into responsibility themselves, which is might be positive or negative for the person itself, but in general, I think it would be very helpful if the society themselves are more their own owners of their health, and that's only possible if they also have the right tools to be able to take ownership. And with, for example, projects and developments like DGAS, or also the possibility to continue tracking their own health status, and also maybe being able to just inform themselves about potential diseases via telemedicine. These are all trends which are leading exactly into the direction which I, as a person, myself as a, but would really like to see the progress further develop into.
But still we have these harsh reactions on it, especially by doctors who are also working in hospitals, obviously. Does it make you worry that digital health is probably not as welcomed in the health system as many want it to be?
Yes, definitely. So that's the other side of the medal then. So in general, I like to help patients be more their own owners, but on the other side, it's the doctors who have to prescribe it. And I was also quite negatively surprised when I was hearing some podcasts about the current status of DGAS, and that a lot of doctors really are worrying. So again, it comes back to my initial statement where I really think that both hospitals and also doctors need to be made aware of the positive effects. And I feel they are currently not seeing it. And it's really interesting. I sometimes feel like there are those two different areas of people like who always fight against each other. And for example, I feel really like kind of also in between, because we started talking to doctors and being their cooperation partners. And now we are catering also for manufacturers directly. And I noticed that doctors really like to take part also in the discourse and be heard and have a voice. The thing is that the thing is also that they always say they don't have time, but in general, it's just about allocating their time. So if they have the feeling that something is worth taking their time, they would do it. So we again also need to just really sit with them on one table. That's my feeling that really helps. We were having these results in the past. We were doing it, putting manufacturers and doctors together, letting them discuss about their wishes, requests, requirements, and suddenly what's really possible is to get a win-win out of it, so that both parties have something out of it. Because I feel there's a huge potential for doctors with DIGA. They just potentially don't see it yet, and we need to show it to them.
Jürgen? Sorry for interrupting you. Is it possible to add something, a very short note?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you so much. So what we saw in the past is a lot of doctors, healthcare professionals, and it's not about that they don't like digital health or digital health solutions, or that they don't like IT in general. Very often it's much more about that there are so many isolated solutions, because from a perspective of a doctor, it's not your focus to handle a maximum quantity of different apps and solutions to do your diagnostics or the therapy for the patients. You need more some kind of integrated systems. And sometimes I have the impression that this is forgotten. And it's not, from my point of view, not just about they don't like digital health or something like that, but there are not so many integrated solutions so far that really helps them in their daily life.
Marc, one thing doctors criticize are lower legal standards for startups than for the traditional industry to reach reimbursement. Are they right?
Maybe if you allow one further remark also to the point before. I mean, we had the pleasure to help on a project where an app was involved in a larger treatment, and basically by using the app, the treatment was reduced by 50%. So the treatment time was reduced by 50%. And of course, you can raise the question, why would a doctor foster this kind of app? Basically takes away 50% of his work. And I don't think doctors are adverse to digital health, on the contrary, but I think that there must be a reward for using it. And that can of course be different, yeah, but it also has to do something with payment and with financial indicators. And I think this must be taken into account to really give this a push, yeah, because the doctors are still the parties who really use it and who often prescribe the therapy, and that's a key element in the whole supply chain. And back to your question, yeah, I think that helps startups reimbursement. I mean, if you look back to where we're coming from, and I supported one of the first tele-assisted reimbursement processes in Germany, and if you compare this to what we have now, this is actually a really a game changer. Is it perfect? No. Yeah, we can still do better, I think. Yeah, but compared to what was there so far, I think this is really good. And does it reduce security aspects or patient safety? No, I really don't see this, I must say, because there is a number of hurdles that must be taken to get even the reimbursement. Yeah, and I think that regulation is actually better than just using, let's say, some funny apps that are out there without any regulation and just send the data, for example, to wherever they want to.
Jochen, do you have something to add to that from the perspective of Roche? Do startups really have lower standards to fulfill to reach reimbursements than the traditional industry, for example, in the quality to the product?
No, I think in Europe it's pretty strict, especially also if you look at the new MDR coming up, which if you look at the US, we work there with startups that have the same solutions, but they launch it as a non-medical. They don't even want to go into medical device regulation. Whenever you bring it up, they're like, oh, no. So they're really afraid of it. Whereas in Europe, and of course they have the HIPAA and they have other rules. It's not there are no rules, but I think the standards are actually higher in Europe. And the DIGA is the same, and we looked a little bit into it. And the studies that you have to do are actually quite substantial. I'm even worried now. On the one hand, it's positive because I think startups can at least point to a path to commercialization, right? Which is, or reimbursement, which is a good thing. Because before you probably would have to argue often, there are some examples where it's paid for by the payer or by this or by that. Now you have a clearly described path to commercialization. However, being aware that it's not an easy path, it's a difficult one, and probably also in many cases an expensive one. I would rather be worried that a lot of startups will face hurdles now to get enough money and time to actually go down that path to come to the reimbursement.
Actually, some startups already dream of a new gold rush when they come into the DIGA process. Others are a bit more skeptical, think that the process is a bit overrated. Aline, what's your perspective on this? Is there a new gold rush?
Yeah, I mean, that's also what we read in the pitch decks and what we hear from founders sometimes. And I would definitely say there's a positive trend, and overall we're very happy with these regulatory developments. However, if I see a startup that only pitches me the DIGA case and nothing else, then I'm sometimes a bit reluctant. And I prefer startups also that are a bit critical in terms of especially all these open questions that we discussed now. For example, are they ones who want to substitute doctors, or are they ones who want to add on to what the doctor already does? So these kind of questions, that they are answered first. And then I would also want them to have answers in terms of how to get the doctors on board, because you said some of them are doubtful or are hesitant to adopt new solutions. And I think that's completely normal. I think that's also obviously the responsibility of the doctor, because he's the one subscribing these solutions. But that also means for the startup, the other way around, that they need to have a strategy how to get the doctors on board. And that doesn't mean it's enough to have a sales force in your financial plan which says we do sales to clinicians, but it actually means that you have some proof points beforehand, that you know exactly how to answer these questions, and that you're also very sure or very convinced in terms of what are possible challenges, what are questions that might get answered negatively in terms of data security and so on. So I really want to see that they did their homework.
What is your advice to get doctors on board?
Yeah, I think it's exactly this kind of discussion. I think it doesn't really help that you develop your product for yourself and for the patient. Obviously, that's the one side, but then again, you also want to have the doctor perspective, because in the end, the doctor is going to be the one who has to look at the data as well, and who will get questions, well, this app told me that and that, what should I do now? So obviously you need to have answers there too. And in the end, you need to have both of them happy.
Roman, do you see reason for gold rush?
No, unfortunately, no for gold rush. I would say that's maybe too much. But I see for sure that there are some paradigm shifts, I would say. Maybe also because of Corona, or because we in Germany we foster digital health at the moment with some governmental initiatives. And we also consult some pharma and medtech companies, and we also see there that they really go now for digital health solutions in the market. So I don't see any kind of gold rush, and I'm also very skeptical when I'm a mentor for a digital health startup. If there's the only reason for the business case is the DIGA reimbursement or process. So to answer your question, unfortunately, no gold rush.
Startups who want to apply, they're actually facing a really long DIGA guide with more than 100 requirements. Probably, Veronika, can you give your startup perspective on that? Is that manageable for a startup, or probably too complicated, too much resources to put in?
Yeah, I was also just wondering, because what I really see with those startups, because we are not a DIGA, but we are cooperating with DIGA solutions, because we would offer our solution for them so they can actually track the clinical data that they need to show their clinical use and the safety aspects. So that's why we have definitely some relationship towards those startups. And what I sometimes feel is that it's kind of maybe even kind of a bad mixture between a digital solution, which would usually be able to scale very quickly. You know, B2C solutions are very easy to scale, first of all, but then it's actually a medical device. And this one is extremely expensive to bring to the market. It's not as expensive as pharma products, so that would be another level, but still a medical device. I feel that many startups who are having this gold rush feeling are definitely not aware of the costs and the length of the process that is happening towards them. So what they really need is experts inside their team already, who are medical experts, but also regulatory experts. And then also on the consulting side, they also do need this advice, which is extremely expensive, because it comes from a medical scene, and that's always quite expensive to take it into account. So I think it's important to tell those startups which are very motivated and are eager to go for it, to show them actually the long and stony path towards the solution. But of course, potentially it's then worth it in the end. They just need to be made aware of beforehand, so that they are not falling into the valley of death in the end.
Marc, how high do you estimate the legal efforts to apply as a DIGA? Is it probably too high for a startup to manage?
I wouldn't say it's too high, but it's certainly a certain threshold that you have to take. But that always comes along with regulation, yeah. And I mean, at the end, there is also hopefully a reward for that process, yeah. I mean, on the other hand, if everybody could get it, you know, there would be no benefit, yeah. So there must be some bottleneck, if you want. So is it challenging? Yes, it is challenging. Is it time consuming? Yes, all of this, yeah. But if you have a good product, I think it's worth going that direction. But on the other hand, I would also say, I mean, if you're only
I think there was some broken connection at Marc. I think, are you still with us, Marc? If not, if you are with us, give us a signal. Actually, we have time for another topic. I would like to talk about who is in the Marc is with us again, I think. Probably not. Anyway, so one last topic is, let's talk about the one for whom this is all about, the change in the health system. It's about the patient. What is, Roman, what is for you the ideal scenario of a patient journey in a digitalized healthcare system, let's say in 10 years, how we will experience the going to the doctor from going to the hospital to talking to the insurance?
Yeah, good question. I think different scenarios are possible. So one thing from my point of view is that especially wearables and medical devices will play an important role. I think that if you have an issue or suffering from a different topic, then it's identified automatically. Your or any kind of doctor will receive your data and what's maybe wrong with you. And maybe an AI will support the decision making if you should go to the hospital or if you should see a doctor or not. Then automatically the scheduling will happen. And if you go to the hospital, everything will already be there. So the doctor will see all the data, all your history, what happened so far. And the decision-making process of the doctor will also be assisted by several algorithms. But I still think that also in 10 years, there will be a human doctor. I think there will be human nurses. And I think in the end, the doctor will decide what happens, but more assisted than today. And then you can think for sure what happens in 15 or 20 years. But I think that could be a scenario.
If you look at the present time, this sounds a lot like future. Aline, what do you think? What will be the most important innovation that will change patients' life? Is it the wearables? Is it the algorithm? What do you think?
That's a very tricky one, because I think you need to have all different pillars coming together. And I think the most important thing that's already changing right now is actually the attitude of the patient to be more self-reliant and to be more empowered and to actually be willing to take care of their health more themselves. Because I think all these applications, technologies, and so on, they'll only work if the patient actually buys into the idea and actually gives his data, uses the applications, and so on. So I think that's the crucial point for me.
Jochen, what do you think? What is there probably, do you see a most important innovation that will change patients' life?
I would pretty much agree with what Aline said, basically really turning it around that I mean, some people say the patient has to own his disease or own his health, actually even broader. Of course, you don't want to only own your disease when you're sick. You actually also want to be in charge of your health when you are not sick, to actually not even get sick, ideally. And that, of course, takes a lot of things, because today that is not possible, because there are all these barriers to even get access to your data. Yes, the IT tools, all of this helps, and it's essential at the end, but really turning it around that the patient is in charge, understands also his health. I think that's also a very important point. How can we educate patients about even what does it mean, a blood pressure value? How do I measure it? How can I influence it? Because if you can't influence anything, then all these wearable devices, as we know, get pretty much thrown away after 3 months because you don't see, I change your behavior, something changes. So it's this whole interaction around the patient, making him really in charge of what he does and his health.
There's still a lot of topics to discuss, but we are running out of time, which gives us time for one last question. Imagine we are standing next year, we are heading towards New Year, and in December we're standing all together or meeting digitally, whatever may be possible. And we're going to discuss what will be the one digital health topic, innovation, whatever you're looking forward in 2021. Probably all of you can give me a short answer. That would be my wish, that you give me a short answer. Probably Aline, we can start with you.
I think it'll be personalized medicine making a big step forward.
Okay, Jochen?
I think in Germany it will be about the Patientenakte, so starting that and getting patient data to the patients.
Mm-hmm. Roman?
I would say that we all could say that the Corona crisis really fosters thinking from the patient's perspective in the future, and that we don't say, okay, that was just for a time of Corona. No, that it's really sustainable. That would be great.
And Marc, are you still with us? Marc is not with us anymore. You can probably send in your idea in the Slack channel. We all can read. Victoria, what would be your wish?
Yeah, actually, probably summing up the others' ideas, which is very much going into a similar direction. I would go into the tracking of individual health, which is really, I think as a private person, extremely interesting to be able to, also organize your lifestyle, track your lifestyle, and then make informed decisions about it, be educated as a patient, and therefore also be able to prevent diseases in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to my panelists. I hope it was as exciting for you as it was for me. Thank you very much for the audience. Everyone who still has questions can send it into our Slack channel. We will forward it to our panelists. I didn't receive any questions, but probably you will still have one. Thank you very much for listening. And now Dominic will tell us how we will proceed.
Thank you.
Dominic, are you still with us?
Hello, hello.
Dominic is here with us.
Yes, now I'm in. Hello, thank you all for your insightful discussions. Jürgen, I think we have a little bit of time on our hands. So really? If there's the one or the other question, we've received that, and we could ask that now.
Perfect.
And perhaps I'll forward that to you. So what do you all think about Amazon's latest movement into healthcare?
I think Jochen can answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, it's of course a debate for a long time since they have started that. I mean, if you look at customer centricity, logistics to patients, Amazon is or would obviously be the company in the world that could drive that. Also taking away, let's say, educational pieces, how to train patients about to use specific devices. So I would see them as a very strong partner of let's say, a pharmaceutical company or a telehealth company, I'm not sure if they would be ready to build their own solutions around with all the regulatory and these aspects. But yeah, clearly they have some strengths which will, I think, be super relevant for what we just discussed, the patient-centric solutions.
Thank you, Jochen. We have one more question, Jürgen, from the audience for relating to the new DIGAs. It's a very German system, obviously. We have a new way to get the regulatory for digital health apps ready in Germany. And what do you think? Will they improve the situation for doctors or worsen that because it's a lot more bureaucracy? Roman?
Sorry, I mean, if I may give it a try. I wasn't sure if the democracy, if the bureaucracy was really meant. I mean, it's for the startup, of course, and to get the reimbursement. And then, of course, you have the prescription that you have to do. However, one thing which we also touched on it before, I think already, is doctors are busy, and I think what you really need to avoid that the physician or also the nurses in the praxis become kind of people that have to train IT solutions or solve IT problems, Bluetooth connectivity problems for patients, right? That is not their job. So it has to be something which is an end-to-end solution. So the physician can prescribe it, he can use the data, but please make sure that actually you don't make him an IT professional, because that's not his job.
Roman, did you have any connection to that so far?
Yes, and I see it very similar, like Jochen mentioned, and I come back a little bit to what I said earlier. I think it's necessary that we have integrated solutions for the physicians. Really, it's otherwise not possible to handle different solutions. For example, in a praxis or as a resident doctor, and even in hospitals, you really want to focus on the patients, on the end-to-end process in a hospital, and you can't be an IT professional at the same time and streamlining interfaces and so on. So my point is, I think we need integrated solutions for the physicians so that they can focus on the patient, and IT systems and digital health should support them in their daily business.
Jürgen, would you forward another question to our panel, perhaps?
Sorry, I just got kicked out of the stream, and I unfortunately don't see any question.
Okay, sorry, then I'll continue, don't worry. I'll just tell you the questions, and you guide me to the right panelist. I mean, adding on to Amazon, would you really recommend partnering with somebody that has disruption at its core? Stefan Vandenabel has asked that question. So would you partner with a disruptor? How long should you swim next to a shark? Is it a shark?
I think this question would be, again, great for Jochen, but I think he got his take on that already, no?
I mean, of course, I can briefly add again. I mean, yes, that's of course a key question. How far do they want to go? Do they want to eat us at the end? Which again, I think, as I mentioned indeed before, it's not that easy. There are also a lot of skills, a lot of knowledge that a big pharma company has, and that is probably sustainable at least for a few years.
and maybe sorry, I think maybe Amazon is not the disruptor for the pharmaceutical industry. I think there are maybe some other tech giants that are that we should look a little bit closer to than Amazon from the perspective of the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, the future is not written here. Jürgen, sorry, I have another question that I think is interesting. So how would you combine patient education in digital health with the movement that we've seen in Corona times that is rather anti-scientific? So will we get more evidence or just more noise in the future?
That's a good question. Probably Victoria can answer that.
Yeah, so I think there are definitely both scenarios that you would rather, of course, first of all, generate a lot of noise, but then the science behind it is that you can then filter the noise and get the very important and interesting information out of it. Because I feel that only with big data and a lot of data, which should of course then also be structured in a way that you can make use of it, the very interesting and innovative new ideas and insights actually come out of it. So I would totally agree that it is useful to collect a lot of different data points, especially from patients, from society, and from real world evidence, as the keyword would be.
I mean, probably to counter that question, I mean, the question is, do you believe that data? I mean, we've seen a president not concede with a lot of very relevant data at his hand. I think this is what the question also refers to. So if data doesn't change behavior, what's the use?
Yeah, so I can answer quickly. I think, you know, the problem is, I think that's comparing apples with pears, as you know, going to the discussion about the president. I think that really undermines actually democracy, in my opinion here, if we want to get political. But in general, I think it's really about the scientific data. And if for me, it then also would be kind of wisdom of the crowd, if there are enough data points and so many of them, that even biases and maybe some results that were on purpose given wrongly would be evened out. I think that's actually the positive effect of large and crowded information, which then is extracted in a nice way.
Maybe one thing, oh, sorry. One thing to briefly add, I mean, I think there's, of course, also already quite a significant amount of medically proven data, and which is actually, yeah, for example, from the European Society of Cardiology, there's a lot of educational information. Now you can argue that this might still sometimes be a little bit technical. It might actually not be known by the broad population that these sources exist. So they usually go to Google and then they've had all kinds of stuff. But there is actually a lot of information already out there which you can trust. But that's an important point. So how can we make sure that we get more trusted information and that patients have access to it and can believe in it and don't go to any kind of source they find in the internet?
So no Twitter for healthcare data.
Yeah, maybe
perhaps
not.
We don't know. Jürgen, we come to the closing of the panel, and since I jumped in now because we had a little bit of issues with the back channel, Jürgen couldn't see the questions that we sent to him apparently. I jumped in. Famous last words from Jürgen Klöckner.
Thank you very much for this very interesting discussion, for your input from several sides. I think there was a quite optimistic discussion, but we also talked about the pain points, so to say, of innovation in the ecosystem. And I think we went through really interesting, hard but interesting year, and next year will show a lot of innovations showing, evolving and showing its power. And I'm really interested to see that. And I hope you will have a really interesting conference on talking about all that.
Thank you, Jürgen. Thank you, Jochen. Thank you, Roman. Thank you, Veronika.